Honorable guests, students, and respected audience, good evening. Welcome to the DH Alumni Talk, aiming to study abroad, behind the scenes, Canada and USA, jointly organized by the ULAB Department of English and Humanities and the DH Alumni Association. My name is Rubaiyat Tasmia, and I'm going to be your anchor for today's event this evening. Before beginning the seminar, I'm requesting all to kindly mute your microphones. Thank you. We will be starting off with an opening remarks from our Honorable Head of the Department of English and Humanities, welcoming Associate Professor Arifa Ghani Rahman to deliver her remarks. Ma'am.
Thank you, Rubaiyat. I'm just going to keep it very short. I just want to express my gratitude to Rebeka for reaching out and volunteering to take a session like this because she has been in the process of mentoring her junior, brothers and sisters from the department and elsewhere for a while. And this is, I think, the first formal session that we're having, thanks to her, desire to help out more students from the department. So thank you, Rebeka, for doing this. And she has managed to rope in Shams. So thanks, Shams, for joining in. It's difficult to sort of coordinate all these things from so far away, but I'm so glad that, this is an opportunity we have because of the pandemic. I mean, this would not have been possible unless you were here physically, right? So I look at this as a good opportunity that we're given to be able to meet each other on this platform so that you can share your knowledge and your experiences. And I'm sure, given the kind of background you both have, the kind of experiences you have between the two of you, there's a lot I'm sure you can offer to our students. And I know that our students will be greatly benefited from your experiences, hearing about these things. There's so many things that you don't really think about when you are on this side, and then you face all kinds of issues when you go out. So knowing this beforehand, I think will certainly give their future planning a little more structure. So, and I'm sure they can reach out to you later on as well if they have more questions. And so with that, let me welcome you to the department, Shams, and of course, Rebeka, welcome back. So on to today's program. Thank you, Rubaiyat. Over to you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your warm words. It is my privilege to introduce our two speakers for this evening, Ms. Rebeka Badiozzaman and Mohammad Shams Ud Duha. Ms. Rebeka Badiozzaman, Batch 091, a highly accomplished graduate from the Department of English and Humanities at ULAB. She's a learning technology and change management consultant with her own consulting firm. She has lived, studied, and worked in 3 continents, Europe, Asia, and North America. She's fluent in 4 languages, English, German, Bengali, and Hindi, plus basic French. Her expertise includes change management, training design, and delivery instructional design, e-learning design, writing and editing, mentoring volunteer management, consulting, project management, business development, and nonprofit engagement. She was a major contributor to the translation of Tariq Masood, Life and Dreams, and worked at New Age Extra as a sub-editor for the Investigative Journalism magazine. Ms. Rebeka was a gold medalist from DEH and graduated as valedictorian from ULAB. She completed her MA in English language teaching while working at the BBC's learning team. She then completed her MA degree in educational technology, language and teaching adult learners from York University, Canada, with a York Graduate Scholarship. Can I have a minute? There is an interruption with my internet connection.
No worries, Rubaiyat, I can take it from here if that's all right. So I'll introduce.
Okay, I'm really sorry for the interruption. I would now like to invite Ms. Rebeka Badiozzaman to introduce our speaker, Mohammad Shams Ud Duha, and take over from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Arifa ma'am, and thank you, Rubaiyat, for the introduction and everything. I'm really happy to be here, and I'd like to first introduce our guest who's here today to share this session with me. Mohammad Shams Ud Duha, he's currently pursuing his PhD in Learning Design and Technology at Purdue University, USA, which is a really, really good university. And he's also the recipient of a prestigious Andrews Fellowship at Purdue University. He has worked as an instructional designer, we can also call it materials developer, for Purdue Repository for online teaching and learning, and the Para Impact Project at the Purdue University. And he currently serves as the president of the Purdue Association of Learning, Design, and Technology, and a student association within the program. Prior to joining his Purdue University program, he actually taught English at Brack University in Bangladesh, and he was also awarded the Fulbright Scholarship to teach at Indiana University, Bloomington, USA during 2015-16 academic year. Now, his specific research interests are online learning environment, social media in education, and micro-learning. So we have a lot of interests in common. And Shams, to add to his portfolio, he's also a writer, and he's a chess player with international ranking. He has written and edited 5 books, and he's written about 9 plays and drama serials, and achieved, as I said, the international rating in chess. So the way, so another identity that he has and we have, so we both are part of a recitation group called Meghdut. That's how we actually got introduced. One of my school friends introduced us there, and that's how we kind of started our journey, and we were looking at studying abroad around at the same time. So Shams, welcome. Thank you so much for joining and making time today. Really appreciate that.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so if in the interest of time, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So when Shams and me, when we both were around 2012, 13, so when we were like discussing, we both were, looking into studying abroad, and we both not necessarily, we didn't know anything, everything at that point. We learned together as we were, kind of navigating everything. And so it's really interesting that we are able to do the session together here. And so before I go more into the different parts, just for the participants, just want to let you know, if you have any questions about what we are discussing, you can actually type it in the Zoom chat box. And if it's relevant, I will answer right away. And if not, we will answer it at the end of the session. All right, just wanted everyone to know that. Okay, so now the first thing that we'll look at today, so what we are really going to do is we're going to look at how did we kind of, it's an experience sharing session, where we'll be like, how did we kind of prepare before applying, and what do we kind of have as suggestions for you guys, and what are the things that maybe we wish that, okay, it would have been really nice if you would have known that earlier. So we want to address that for you as well, and also some of the things that's like, okay, things that people usually don't talk about, like the hard things, the struggles. So we'll get into that a little bit as well, not to discourage, but to kind of give you a heads up on that. Okay, so now Shams, if we talk about how we prepared before applying, your and my background is a little bit different. We navigated in a different sense. So I would like you to maybe first talk a little bit about how you thought about and started getting into, okay, now I'm going to apply, or, how did that start? Like, I remember our conversation once when I was telling you about, we were discussing the FLTA program, the teaching program with Fulbright. I think that's how we kind of found out that we both are looking into studying abroad. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about your mindset at that time and how it all got started for you? And then I'll add.
Of course. Yeah, so thank you so much, Rebeka, for inviting me, and especially to ULAB, because ULAB has a very special place in my heart for many reasons. So one of the reasons is one of my mentors, Dr. Shamshad Murtaza, is one of the leaders of ULAB, and he has been my mentor for the last 15 years. So he was my direct professor, and we have been in touch. And then, of course, you graduated from ULAB, and I know that how appreciative you were about ULAB for the experience that you had as an undergrad student at ULAB. Okay, now coming back to your question. So let me first start from my undergraduate years, because that will probably give an idea about how I evolved as a person over the years and how I made up my mind to finally apply to study abroad. So I did my bachelor's and master's in English from the Department of English at Jahangirnagar University. So at the time, I was involved with a lot of things together. Like I was not very a focused person, you know. I think Dr. Shamsud Murtuza sir can attest to that. That I was involved with like playwriting, playing chess, doing organizational works. That nobody was actually telling that which direction I was going to take. Like my professor, my teacher. So
So the only
nobody
thing
was.
that he was not doing was like, he was not doing his classes, and he was
Yeah.
doing everything else.
Okay.
Yeah, I
We'll
know
come
that
back.
Dr.
We'll
Yeah,
come
Dr.
back.
Shamsud Murtuza sir will tell that, because I mean, he was one of the persons who I can reach out to anytime. Like, am I going in the right direction? Am I doing the right thing? And sir was the person to like tell me that you should go this direction. You should control yourself. You should prioritize. That you shouldn't do a lot of things together. So I'm really honored to like have Shamsud sir in this session today, so that like I'm feeling very nostalgic. So, so I was so involved with a lot of other things that in one of the vivas, one of our professors told me, although we know that you are not going into teaching, but let us ask you a question from the English language teaching course. So they were totally sure that I was not going into teaching because I was involved with so many other things. So then I joined, but finally I went into teaching. I started teaching at Armed Forces Medical Institute. So that was a military institutions under, so that is affiliated with Bangladesh University of Professionals. So I had a very diverse group of students there, military officers, then the nursing students, medical technology students. So I had a great teaching experience there, and I started loving teaching. And that led me to join another university as a part-time instructor. So at Independent University Bangladesh, where Farzana Appa was also one of my colleagues. So there I had the opportunity to teach foreign students. So I taught Bengali to American students under different programs funded by the US State Department, like Critical Language Scholarship Program, Fulbright Program. And so I taught Bengali there. So it's the language teaching, but it's different kind of language teaching, like a different language. So I further developed my interest in teaching, and that actually led me to think about the FLTA program, Fulbright Language Teaching Assistant Program, because some of our former colleagues went to that program and they had great experience there. So I applied to the program. Yeah.
Shams, if you can just maybe tell the full form of the FLTA and what that actually kind of means.
So FLTA means Fulbright Language Teaching Assistantship. So under this assistantship, you primarily teach Bengali to US university students, but you have two other different roles as well. Like you can take courses as a student there, and you will also serve as a cultural ambassador of Bangladesh. So we have three different roles here. Okay. So when I was at Indiana University Bloomington, apart from my teaching responsibilities, I also had the opportunity to learn from US professors, and I also had the opportunity to serve as a cultural ambassador.
So let's say when we talk about, so then the preparation part, so let's before FLTA, like you still had to write your statement of interest, right? You still had to kind of do like in terms of getting ready mentally. So how did you do that, and how did it like help you?
Right, yeah, it's a good question. So for Fulbright, like for the FLTA program, I had to write, I think, 4 or 5 essays as part of the application. So one of the essays is about my academic qualification and other achievements for the program. So there I have to write about my academic qualification and what other qualities I have to prove myself as a fit for the program. Like, as I have told you that I have to perform 3 different roles, and only academic qualifications will not be helpful for them to like award me the scholarship, right? So I had to write about my extracurricular activities, like the plays that I have written, the sports involvement of mine over the years, then what organizational activities that I did over the years. So all these things together made me a suitable candidate for this
So yeah, so I
particular
think I
program.
should go back to the point where you said you did everything. So for sure, like to prepare your, when you sit down, like even for me, like when you sit down to write your statement of interest, which is like one of the most important parts when it comes to applying abroad, that is not something you just sit down and write. That is
Yeah.
something that is kind of a testimony of what you have done the past few years. So what you mentioned, for example, you did all those different things, that actually kind of builds the personality. So what I'm trying to say here is, like, even for me, like at ULAB, I was at the beginning, I did not target that, yes, I will go abroad. That's why I'm active in clubs. That's why I'm, leading, let's say, reestablishing the language club and all of that. I didn't do it at the beginning because I wanted to go abroad. However, everything that I did at ULAB, which then later awarded me the valedictorian title, it actually helped me build my statement of interest. It helped me actually build, it helped me, it built me, it kind of shaped me as a person. And that was reflected in the statement of interest. So what I want to say here to all the students or everyone is that, anything and everything that you do can be, utilized in a way that it shows what kind of person you are, and that sets you apart, not the regular. So don't, we shouldn't look at someone's statement of interest and be like, okay, I'm just going to follow this particular, style, or I'm going to write similar lines. That's not helpful.
Yeah,
What's
every
really
statement of
helpful,
purpose is unique. I mean, you
yeah,
have to write
exactly.
your own stories, and you
That's
have
the
to,
most important part.
yeah, and you
Yeah.
have to prove through your statement of purpose that why you are the right candidate for a particular program or a particular project or a particular university.
Yes,
Yeah.
but in addition to that, you need to show character. You need to show that you're unique. You need to show that you can add value to the program, whether it's with your music that you do, whether it's with the guitar that you play, whether it's with all the, dramas that you have participated, whether it's on stage or backstage. Those things add value, right? And at times, like, for example, the passion that you have. For me, it was languages, because I was born in Bangladesh, but I grew up in Germany. Then I've been around, I've lived in different places. And I was lucky enough to be immersed every time in a certain culture and language and learn it from there. And in grade 7, I learned Bengali as an academic language as well. So I studied in Bengali medium, English medium, German medium. So I've had like this whole language experience, which I put on my statement that, this is what I feel. And that's why I'm so empathetic to learners. I feel so much about learners itself that it's like a real passion, and that stood out. And for my program, for example, I was the only international student, and they selected me because they saw the personality in the statement. Yes, my gold medal helped me. Yes, my valedictorian title helped me. My work at BBC helped me. Yes, but the characteristics that you portray about yourself, your passion, that is, like, I feel most important. Even later, I served on graduate committees where we were sorting through statement of interest and helping select people who will actually join the program. And that's for Canada, especially. That is like really, really important. They want to see you're humane. They want to see you're empathetic. You've done volunteer work. That is like for Canada, anyone who's, looking into it, that's so important. I definitely must say.
And another thing is you have to build connections between all the stories that you are going to write in your recipe, how the stories collectively make you a good fit for the program. I mean, it cannot be just a random collection of stories that you will write in your recipe. You have to build connections, how they are connected logically together.
Absolutely. And then in terms of
make you a good fit.
That is now the playwright speaking about stories. That's you, the playwright speaking. That definitely must have helped you. And I think for you, as you were saying, you did all the different things when you were doing undergrad, but that kind of, helped you later on to actually have that edge over others, right? The advantages, that things that you were thinking, okay, I'm doing so many things, but that itself, I think, helped you. Don't you think so?
Yeah, of course. I think that gave me a competitive edge over other candidates, because when they see that every candidate has the same academic qualifications, so how do they make the decision? So they will look at your other qualifications, like what other extracurricular activities that you have done, because those things really help, like
Yeah.
in terms of critical thinking, in terms of communication, in terms of other aspects.
Yeah, I think Shams, now since we're talking about what you just mentioned, we can also add on. So when you about selecting a program and how to meet the basic requirements. So what happens is you select a program, then you meet the basic requirements. That could be your IELTS, or maybe 80% or 70% in your undergrad, or sometimes it's the last 2 years of studies for Canada. So you meet those basic requirements, but that doesn't mean you get admission. That's the statement of interest, the statement of purpose that helps you. That's really what stands out. But that also means you have to first meet the basic requirements. So for me, like, I was teaching IELTS at a renowned institute while I was studying at ULAB. So for me, language was not the issue, but for many others and people that have helped, like preparing for the language test 3 months in advance, that doesn't work. You really, whichever department you're in, whether you're in English or any other department, you really should start, like, the moment you realize you want to go abroad, you should start prepping for it, because language is more a development over time than just a crash course of 3 months, 6 months. It doesn't really help you develop. Like, I've had a lot of juniors who had asked me, and I'm glad, and they have really done it way in advance, and they've done really well. And that is like one tip that I want to give you, is that just keep learning from the time that you want to, or even like in general, you want to improve your English language abilities, you just have to start right away. Don't wait for like a course or a specific time, right? I think you also had to go through the tests and the basic entry requirements. How did you navigate that?
Yeah, that's a very important part of the application, because you have all the qualification, but if you don't meet the basic requirement, that you cannot even apply. So I can only speak for the US. So for a typical US university, you need 2 standardized testing requirements. One is GRE and another one is TOEFL or IELTS.
Yeah, so I want to point out here the very stark difference. In Canada, there, like, most of the programs you can apply without the GRE. So the GRE is the more already, I'd say it's a pretty hard test, and you have to do a lot of studying for it. So that's like one of the main differences between Canada and the US. You can actually apply for many, even science-based subjects, without the GRE. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's one of the differences. Even in the US, many universities have started waiving GREs, but still it's a requirement for most of the universities, especially in the humanities or the departments that we are going to apply to. So this is a tough exam. There was recently one research study that said that GRE is one of the factors for why students are not applying to the US universities, because that's the thing that is very tough. But from my experience, it's tough, but it's not tough at the same time, because if you can prepare in advance. So in this exam, you need to answer in very quick bursts, right? So you have, if you can prepare in advance, you can, if you can set up your mind in and tailor your mind to the exam, then you can really do well there. So my suggestion is to start early. At least you need 6 months of preparation for that. I mean, that's ideal, but it depends on how many hours can you invest, how many resources can you go through, how many practice tests can you give. So that really depends.
Were you ever did you ever have a mindset where you're like, oh my God, it's hard? Or what were you feeling? Like, I think that's a really important part, because it's not, yes, it's important to stay motivated, but there are those times when you're like, oh my God, this is just too hard. I think I felt that when I was looking for universities, finding the program was so, oh my God, it was like overwhelming at times. So how were you feeling at that time? I'd like to know. Maybe that is something that may help.
My feeling was the same like other students, but after doing my Fulbright, so by the way, that for my Fulbright, I didn't require, I mean, that they didn't require the GRE. So I only had to take the TOEFL. But for my PhD application, I had to take the GRE. So once I had the US study experience, I made up my mind that if I want to go for my higher studies, I must go to the US, but because I really like the environment there. So once you have the determination that you want to pursue your studies in a certain country or in a certain university, then I think that GRE is not an obstacle for you, because it will just a matter of time. You can gradually develop yourself, and you can go towards your target. So I
Can
think
I just
determination helped me a lot here.
add to that
Yes.
a little bit from my experience? I have similar background as Shams. I was also a Fulbright FLTA long ago,
Yeah.
2007 and 8. And before that, I was already planning to study abroad, but my focus was Canada or England or Australia maybe, but I never thought about USA because of GRE. I was like, okay, I can't handle GRE because I'm afraid of math. So, but finally, when I went for my Fulbright year, I realized that Fulbright, the GRE thing is not everything actually. It's definitely important, but it's not everything, and it's not the most important thing. And there are many US universities, very good ones, that do not require GRE because, say for example, I completed my PhD from the University of Rochester, which is very highly ranked. It's 29th, in US national ranking. So in my school of education, they don't believe in any standardized test at all. So they don't require GRE. Okay, and now there are more and more universities that don't require GRE anymore. So I found that one. Then I also chose a few more, and there was another one where for which I took GRE and I did really bad, but I still got admission with full funding there. So I applied to only 2 universities, but my first choice was University of Rochester.
Thank you for sharing.
They want to see your dynamism. You both were talking about how dynamic you were, right? So those are the things that they value. They want to see how unique and how dynamic you are. Okay,
Yeah,
so
however,
that's just one part. GRE is just one part.
Thank you for sharing. That is true, but as we are talking about meeting the basic requirements, we had to address how it is in different universities there.
Yeah, so you have to take it, but you prepare overall with other things as well.
I mean, they will evaluate you holistically. Don't be afraid of GRE. This is just one of the requirements that you have to meet. Like my GRE score was not that good, I would say. Like all the other engineering students, like they got 330, 340 sometimes.
Of course, they have an advantage. Yeah, you can do that. But when it comes to like selection of universities and program, meeting the basic requirements is really important. And that's why the GRE comes in. So thank you, Ms. Farzana, for sharing your experience. So it doesn't mean that, okay, USA, that it's possible. It again comes back to the selection of universities, which is like really important. So for me, when I was at ULAB and I was considering, I had family in Canada. So for me, Canada was the only option at that point for a specific reason. But I remember, like, especially Juditha ma'am, she was the one, she was the one who encouraged me to study abroad a lot, and she supported me in many different ways, and she was like my one-on-one mentor, anything, like go-to person. And then I had Sarwa sir and even Kaiser sir. They were like absolutely helpful. And I also had Munasir ma'am. I don't know, Munasir Kamal, if any of you got her, or she's now at Dhaka University. And she also at a very similar time, she actually went to study in the US, and she helped me a lot with understanding about the statement, about the dynamic part, about how it's important to be personal, right? But all of them really wanted me to apply to the US, but because I had some restrictions in terms of, like, I wanted to move to Canada, so I wanted Canada to be the place, I couldn't apply to a lot. So it wasn't because of the GRE or anything. For me, it was really selecting the country. And then I had to like look at all the different programs in Canada. They're not straightforward, and I do not like the universities because of that. I've given a lot of feedback even when I was at York, that your websites are meant to confuse people. They're not meant to guide students, and that's a pain, I'll say directly. It took me like months to really find the programs that I want to apply to, because, and the interesting and also the hard part is that the program will have a certain name, but then it will have subdivisions and like courses which are sometimes not directly related to the main name of the program. So you can't just search with the main name of the program, because under the program you may have something that's absolutely suitable for you, maybe a special scholarship for people who have studied music. And even, let's say, there in Canada, there are a lot of universities where, let's say, we have moms who take a break for a year or two and they want to come back. There's special scholarships for them as well, and for students who have not studied for a while and want to get back. So finding the right program, the right university, and the right scholarship that may apply to you takes time. So regarding that, what like my experience, you need to really take time. Like I was working at BBC at that time, and I was looking at programs, and it took me months. So I would definitely suggest at least like 5 to 6 months to really look into it. So when you're in the last year of your program, or even earlier, if you while studying, if you can do it, wonderful. If not, always like take your time. Don't be like, okay, I'm just going to apply to any university. That's not that, because you also have to invest money to apply. Of course, all of them have fees to apply. So, you're planning when it comes to, researching. Don't feel, okay, within a month I can find a university. If you do, you're lucky. That's not the norm. That's really what I want to say, that you're lucky if you do find it in a month, or if, you're just targeting like one. That's not really, the only thing to do. So what do you have to say about, or your suggestions or experience about selecting the universities and program?
Yeah, that's a very important part. So I can only tell about my strategy, like what did I do in selecting the universities. So since I was applying for a PhD program, and you know that for a PhD program, the advisor is very important. Like the advisor will guide you throughout your journey. So after returning from my Fulbright program, I developed an interest in technology and learning. So I also opened an unit at my institute at Brack University and started designing online programs. And then I found that I have serious lack of knowledge in this area. So I decided to study this particular area for my PhD. And I was looking for who are working in this particular area, who are recognized, who are doing great works. And then I looked at their profiles, and I looked at where they work. And that's how I actually select my universities. And then I also like connect them with the overall university ranking, overall program design. But my main focus was the advisor, like who is going to like guide me in my way. So that is one way of looking into that. And another way is to find like which programs are doing good in terms of ranking, which university is renowned in terms of ranking, and then find a balance between these two and select. And I always recommend my students and my friends to have like a balanced selection. Like don't go for all the high ranked universities. You have to make a balance between high ranked, then middle ranked, and then the other ranked universities, so that you have a balance when you apply.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another thing. Like, don't be afraid to apply to university just because it's high ranking. And at the same time, don't just apply to all, as you said, high rank. And that applies for the US. However, the interesting part in Canada is that the education quality is controlled in a way that, yes, for example, University of Toronto, University of British Columbia, McGill University, and there are some others who have really good names. However, whichever university you go to, it actually in Canada, the quality control is very high, and they make sure that all of the universities actually have a certain standard. So you can go to any university in Canada. So like, however, what's the most important part when it comes to selecting university, apart from program in Canada, as you, I think all will know, is weather. Weather is very important, and you need to understand that the place that you're going to, how is the city built, you need to do the research in terms of the weather and how the city is, how the living expenses are, and how the living conditions are. Like I have a cousin who studies at University of Manitoba, and at the beginning, like he really wanted to study abroad, so it was absolutely amazing for him. However, the weather is something minus 50 degrees Celsius is not a joke. The two of his cars like stopped working. So those are things that you need to keep in mind really. And because mental health while studying is so important. And when you're here abroad, you may have friends, you may have some family, but your parents, your immediate family members are not here. So mental health is not something to ignore. So you need to take care of your own mental health. And one of them in winter, if it is like too, how to say it, if it's too gloomy, it affects your mental health. It really does. So you need to know that, are you capable of dealing with it? You need to know, is it actually worth applying to that university? Only just at times I've seen situations where people, have gone through really hard things. So for me, fortunately, because I'm a very optimistic person, I create my own environment in terms of, so that I can, be mentally fit and healthy. And I always reach out to people if I have issues, but I've seen a lot of students really struggle because of that. So when you select universities, looking at, if you need Bengali community, you need to look at the Bengali community. If you don't need it, then look at that as well, whatever really you feel you need, because you're the judge best for your own mental health, what will be helpful for you. But weather is very important. Like Newfoundland, it can be buried under snow 6-7 feet also at times. And same with Manitoba. So there are some universities which may sound lucrative, but look at maybe smaller universities in better weather, I would suggest. So that may be helpful for you in next. So Arifa ma'am made a comment that her main consideration was that she knew someone there. Okay. Yeah, so that's, as I said, it's definitely something you need to know, that what is your preference. And and Wafi has a quick question. Okay, thank you, Arifa ma'am, for your comment. And Wafi Rahman, so he has a quick question, one for alumni committee members, that how significant it is choosing between public and private university. Very good question. The concept of public and private university is actually not 100% there in Canada, because all of the universities are partially public, at least. So it really depends on how much funding they get, and most of them are like publicly funded, and then it just depends what percentage of funding they get. So private university in Canada is really, you may not even get admission as an international student, because they may not be authorized to actually bring in international students. Only a few. So they're more called like career colleges or something like that. So that is not, for Canada, it's not relevant, actually. Most of the universities, any university that international student can get admission to needs to be approved by the government. So it's highly quality controlled. But if they're like smaller private universities, then those are here like more called like career colleges and stuff like that. So they don't usually get permission to admit students who are, international students who are coming here. Usually that's the case. However, in Canada, one thing that is there is you can either go to a university or you can go to a college, and colleges here are still really good. So they have like really good programs, even when you're done with your undergrad, and instead of a master's, you can do something called a postgraduate, like a graduate diploma, not postgraduate, a graduate diploma. So that's something that can help you sometimes as a bridge to your master's, and it's easier to get entry. So that's why some people actually take that as well. So to answer your question, Wafi, in Canada, to choose, it will be between a college and university in that sense, because similar programs are there at colleges, but they're like shorter, or they're named as diplomas. That's that. Okay. So, but do you have something to say about public-private university comparison in the US? Do you have any experience with that, or no?
So the university that I'm currently studying is a public institution. The previous university was also a public institution. But so far as I know, there is not much difference between these two in terms of getting assistantship, in terms of studying for international students. You can apply to any university. Like I have seen my friends studying and getting assistantship in private universities. And of course, there are a lot of students studying in public universities.
Okay, thank
you. Can I just add a little bit, because I went to a private one. University of Rochester is a private one, and all the Ivy Leagues in the US are private universities too.
Yeah.
And it depends on so many other things that Ms. Rebeka and Shamsa have already discussed. The requirements when you choose. So not exactly whether it's public or private. It's more like which program you like, and the requirements, whether you can meet, whether so many other things, and the funding, whether you will receive funding or not. And for me, I chose the program that I liked best. The school, there were other things that
Ms. Farzana, I think what Wafi was, he was like concerned, or in general, people have this concern that you just clarified. And also what Shams mentioned, that there still may be funding and there still may be equal opportunity. But as I said, in Canada, that's not like
Yeah.
widely practiced. But
Yeah, then
thank
if you
for
don't
sharing
have,
your view about US. Thank you.
yeah, just one thing, if you are thinking about like, funding, self-funding kind of thing, then you have to remember that private universities are super expensive,
Yeah.
so that's the only
Okay.
thing probably to consider.
Thank you for addressing that. And Shams, I think that brings us to our next point in preparing as well, is the financial part. So one is, as I said, the mental health part. You need to know where you're going, how you're going. Then the statement, we talked about the statement and all of that. And we talked about selecting the university. But one thing that's really important, and I have a strong personal opinion about it, is the finance part. See, as from people who apply from Bangladesh, usually they would like to, look at programs which are fully funded, which have enough money, right? And in Canada, a lot of the programs have 50 to 75% funding. They don't necessarily have full funding all the time. Some of them do. Like for me, I got 2 scholarships. My program was fully funded. And then I got additional scholarships. So that was the exception. That's not the norm. So in Canada, especially, you need to understand that at times it may not be possible to get full funding. But studying in Canada and in the US is a full-time job. You need to understand it's really important to invest your time in studying, because you're here for an experience, for a degree. And if someone thinks that, oh, okay, so I'll just go and I'll just work like full time and I will not follow the rules, please do not make that mistake. That's a terrible, terrible mistake. I've seen people falter and, go through all kinds of things. So my earnest request is that please, when you come here, you need to have your setup money. You need to have, because when you come here, you have to buy so many things. You need to have the startup money. You need to have enough money to stay here in terms of accommodation and all. Yes, you can work. Canada, the day you enter, you have 20 hours a week as an international student, you can work. Yes. And especially now considering the pandemic, it's going to be much harder. But you can't aim at, that, okay, I will just work and cover my costs. Like, I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but that is not the best way to do it, because you have to adjust to so many things. The weather here, the new way of studying, it's very different that universities in Bangladesh. So I really request that you have, enough funds, whether you borrow it or whichever way you get, donors from family and friends at the beginning, you can pay it back later. That's possible. That's not impossible. But you really need to plan when it comes to money. And it's very important for you to be able to complete your studies. Because if you don't complete your studies, then what's the use of coming here and those 2 years? You can, if you have the plan to stay back also, you can't do it, because you need to complete your studies successfully. So what do you have to say about this? Or what does your experience say, Shams, related to this?
Yeah.
You've been on a scholarship. It has been different, but you may have seen others, navigating it.
Right. So I think if you want to finance yourself in an US institution, you have 3 main options. So one of them is you can be funded through a teaching assistantship. That means you will teach undergrad students. So you can apply for that. It depends on your particular program, if the program has those facilities. So you have to explore that well before you're making your decision. The second thing is you can be funded through a research assistantship. So you will primarily do research with your advisor or with a professor, and that will give you the funding. And the third option is you can also work in one of the administrative units of university, and that will also give funding. So funding means you'll get a stipend, you'll get a monthly or yearly stipend, and you will get your tuition fees waived, completely waived or partially waived, because of your involvement with that university. So before
Shams,
applying
sorry to
yes.
interrupt. I just want to hear, because you just explained what funding means for US, it completely means something different for Canada. So in US, it means your tuition is fully covered. But in Canada, usually the way they calculate the money is that, okay, this is what you will get. So if you get a teaching assistantship, you pay your tuition from that money. Usually that's what it is here. So it's a bit different unless it's a fully funded program. So funding related also, you need to really understand the languages when it comes to Canada or US. It's that's another challenge to really understand it fully. So it's very different than yours.
Yeah, and as Farzanapa has mentioned in the chat, that funding in the US is very limited in fields like English literature and education. Yes, this is very true. But if you continuously like prepare yourself and keep applying, of course, I guess I'm sure that you'll get something here. And especially, I think education, the funding is increasing day by day, I guess, because of the, especially in the technology education where I am in. So you can probably target this one if you have interest. But I would always tell you to go with your interest, with your passion.
Mm-hmm. So that's another thing. See, maybe the whoever has joined, students, they may wonder why we're talking education. So the education department here is not like Bangladesh, like the B.Ed it's done there. It's really like a separate department, just like English or let's say ELT. But under that, you will see a lot of broad programs where you can actually, because I came to the Department of Education at York University, but then I specialized in learning technologies, which then helped me with my role that I was doing. So as I said, so it's the umbrella part. So education department can be an umbrella for your specific, even if you're from literature, it can help you design your own course as well. And a lot of at times I've seen for language and literature, like also gender studies, a lot of programs under gender studies are linked. So there are different departments that can be actually linked. And let's say there's the science department that was there that has a link on how social media helps people in terms of their mental health. So you as a student from ELT, you can actually be part of that department because they have, the liberty of designing such a program. So again, it goes back to finding really the right program for you. Okay, yeah, so we are almost towards the end. So there are a few more things that I really want to know from you and also share. That is like the really important question, I think, is what did you and me both like kind of found out later that we wished that when we were preparing to apply, we actually knew. So we already shared some of them, but what was the main or some of the things that you thought that, okay, if I had known this earlier, then I would have, it would have made such a difference. Is there anything that you want to share of that sort?
Yeah, there are many things, but I think I want to share one thing that I think we have a belief that in order to apply for a PhD program, probably you need to have a lot of experience in terms of research, teaching, and all that. But after coming here, I think that's not entirely true. Like if you can like present your interest in a genuine manner, if you can be strong in your application, you can also apply early. I mean, just after completing your master's, you can apply for a PhD. But my original perception was different. Like I thought that probably I have to acquire a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience in terms of research and teaching. And that's why I got a bit delayed, I guess. But if you want to start early, you can also start early. And that's happening here in the US.
Yeah, and I think for the US, there's a lot of funding for PhDs. Like I have a friend from ULAB. He's not from English, but Mohammad Mudassir, he is from EEE. After his undergrad at ULAB, he worked at Samsung, and then he directly got into PhD. And he did his PhD in artificial intelligence. So funding is not impossible in PhD, even after your undergrad. It really depends on your profile, and there's no harm in trying. That's the thing. However, in Canada, they don't usually take admission in PhD without a master's from abroad. Usually they don't do. So they give more admission to international students in masters. Even if you have a master's, they will ask you to do a master's here. So that's what they prefer in terms of. That's also a significant difference between Canada and the US. They've seen there's more funding and more admission in direct PhD compared to Canada. Here, it's like better. The master's here is 2 years, and you do the master's, and then they prefer that you go into your PhD. That's that. And so for me, the question that I asked you, what did I wish that I had known earlier, is one thing is that the program directors, they'll say graduate director and program director, they're like big shots. You'll see all the names and everything. It's like writing to Shams Ud Sir in one sense. But here, in Canada, they actually appreciate direct emails. So you don't have to, if you have any questions about your program, you can actually email them and they reply. And I did try it before, but after coming here, I realized how proactive they are. Like there was this, like I was trying to help someone get admission, and I actually, like I was able to call the person and talk to the department head because I had some questions. So I just called the number and he picked up, and it was, they're very communicative and they're very responsive when it comes to that. So that's something that I learned after coming here, and I encourage you to use that. Don't be afraid of writing to someone just looking at the designation. The head of the department usually is very helpful, the director. They're very, very helpful for sure. And in terms of, there was another thing. Yeah. We already kind of talked about some of it, like the setup part, like the setting up here and the weather part. So we did talk about that. And yeah, but as I said, what I would have, like, it would have helped me a lot if I knew that I could actually contact the professors much easier. Then, you know, I also thought that maybe, okay, why would they respond? I did write to the assistants a lot, I remember. I communicated with the coordinators a lot. But if you write to the directors, you can get a lot of, even like basic entry requirements can be, you know, adjusted. They can actually do quite a lot of things. It's pretty interesting how they can help you. Yeah. And so that's that part. And yeah, so we are now, Shams, is there anything else that you'd like to add or you'd like to ask me? And let me also think if there's anything that I want to ask you.
Yeah, I think you have covered most of the things. I also want to add that people here are very approachable, like in Canada or in the US. So if you have any questions, always feel free to write to them, express your interest. But before writing to any one of them, please research that person well so that you can show something that you know about that person and then ask a question. So that's very important.
So we have a question actually. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to message it in the chat. The one question is Sumaya Kobishi asked about the culture shock. So now the thing is, it depends how you have grown up and what kind of environment you have been exposed to in your home country. Because in Bangladesh, you can, people grow up in many different ways. Depending on that, you may or may not have a culture shock. But one thing for Canada and US, most importantly, is to have an open mind. You need to be empathetic towards someone you don't know. You can't be like, oh my God, why is she like that? Why is he like that? No, that's a reaction that will like totally destroy you and your career and everything in many different ways. You need to be open-minded. If you don't understand something, whether it's about LGBTQ issues or anything for that sort, you are okay to not understand something. That's absolutely fine. But you cannot look at them in you know, different way. You need to have your open mind in terms of, yeah, you don't have to follow anything, but you need to accept how people are. So that's the humanity part that comes. So if you're a good human being, and you know, if you know that you need to be respectful to others, so those things help you navigate it. And in terms of like other culture shock, it's definitely the weather part, the food part. So you need to, I definitely suggest that if you're going to smaller cities to get your own Bengali fixes that you need from home, so then you should definitely do that. But bigger cities in Canada especially, you get everything. I can get almost 99% of things that I have in Bangladesh, I can get it here. So that's absolutely. And in terms of the question, Sumaya, if you can clarify, she asked the second question, how to respond to the reaction you get to your ethnicity, sorry. In Toronto, you don't get a reaction to your ethnicity because it's so multicultural. You can speak, Toronto is a country where it is like, I have, for example, like I speak German as introduced before. So I can speak German, English, Hindi, Bengali in the same city at the same time. So it's so diverse. So here you don't get it, but if you go to smaller places, yes, people may turn around and look at you depending how, I would say, how white the city is and how less diversity they have. But of course, there's like, you know, there are people who do face racism, and depending on where you are. And again, that is, you know, so depending on which city you go, the smaller the city is, the more the chances are that you may get, so race may be an issue. It is a real talk We have right now, for example, we have a lot of East Asian hate going on. We have a lot of issues. Black people have a lot of issues. Anyone, people of color in general may have issues. It's not that you may not have issues, but you need to understand, especially in Canada, if you have an issue, there's a place to resolve it. It's not like Bangladesh, where let's say if you have an issue, you report, you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. Here, something happens, you have people to make sure that you're respected, because human rights is very, very important when it comes to Canada. US, it's a little bit different. We're a little bit more at risk, but again, still you have the police, you have the university, you have discrimination committees as well, race related, who will definitely help you navigate. And the International Students Association, please, anywhere you go, make sure you're in touch with them. They are your best friends. And they were my best friends, and I became best friends with many international students through them. So I helped mentor. So that is something that you need to do. Don't only stick with your own people from your own ethnicity. What's the use of coming to a country and not meeting everyone? So be open-minded, make friends from all communities, and protect yourself by, affiliating yourself with all the student associations. They help you when it comes, if there's any discrimination or anything, they're the ones who will have your back at that time. Shams, do you have anything to say? And then slowly we can, I think, wrap it up.
No, I think you have covered everything. So keeping an open mind, being in touch with the student organizations, especially international student organizations, will give you a lot of support.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so do we have like any other questions? And I said, this is actually a session to kind of, it was more about how do you get, what was your preparation like to go to, the places. Maybe we will have future sessions where we can talk about how studying in Canada or US is, and in future, how to prepare for admission for different universities or countries. Like my plan is to have people from other countries as well. This is just for everyone who's joined, just to let you know. So there will be other options, like I will bring in other guests from other countries. That's in the works. And so at this moment, Rubaiyat, is there any other questions that we have, or else like, and again, Shams, I really want to thank you for your time. Like, I know if we sit down and chat, we can talk for hours, but we only had an hour today. I know there's so much we can talk about, but I appreciate it so much. I know how busy you are. You're preparing for so many things. He's still at Purdue. He's so active there as well. And so thank you so much for your time, and for sitting down with me and have the heart-to-heart talk that we had today. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure that it has helped a lot of people and will be helping a lot of people. Next time anyone asks me, I'll be like, please listen to it. Please listen to that. It will be
thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. And please feel free to reach out to any of us for with any questions. We'll be more than happy to answer.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we will share our contact details with the department, and I think an email went out, so we can go ahead and maybe send out some contact details where you can communicate with us, or you can also send it to the department. They can pass it on to us. Thank you, Neha. I'm glad that it has helped you. Oh, okay, that's a Rito Bina. She also commented that it was very helpful, but thank you for being here. And I'm sad that the Facebook part didn't work out, but it will get posted and hopefully help others as well. So again, thank you, Arifa ma'am, for being here. And Rubaiyat, do you want to take it from here and complete it?
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. For this immensely insightful discussion. As our students already mentioned in the chat box, and I can say that I have learned a lot from this session. So thank you again. And I would also like to thank Shamshad sir and Arifa ma'am for making time and joining us. You are always there to support, and you're always making time for such events. So thank you again. So today's DH alumni talk.
Can I just interrupt quickly to say that we have actually several faculty members here, and Farzana, who was participating in the discussion so animatedly, she is also a faculty here, and we have Naza here, and Sheikh Nahian, Sumaya Kabir, who has been asking questions.
Yeah, I think I see Muntasir Mamunsa as well.
Muntasir, yes. So quite a number of our faculty, Mahfuz, I mean, you wouldn't recognize them because they're even
no,
I
I see
am
some of
actually
them.
not from your time, and I didn't have you as a student. You didn't have me as a teacher, but we got to know each other. Tanzia is here.
Nadia ma'am is here too. She's like, I'm
And
here
Nadia
too.
is here too. So quite a number of the faculty members are here actually to
Appreciate it.
listen to you and to support this effort on part of
Thank you. So
the
I just want
Alumni
to,
Association.
yeah, I just want to say one thing here, because over the years, in the past 8 years, a lot of faculty members actually referred students to me, and I've talked to them and guided them and all of that. So I'm really thankful for that, for thinking of me and connecting us. So that's always been very interesting. And wherever I am and whatever I do, ULAB has given me such a unique experience that it's always in my heart, and I always think of it, and I always think of the department. So anything at any point, I'm just very happy to help and be there for you guys. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best. That's all from me.
So thank you again. And this is just a formal closing that I'm doing. So DH Alumni Talk, aiming to study abroad behind the scenes, Canada and USA ends here. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining and making the event an utter success. And we are looking forward to more engaging sessions similar to this one. So thank you again, and I'm just signing off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.